Daniel was known in his small town as a man with a gentle heart. He was not rich, not famous, but people respected him for his kindness. He worked at a hardware store and lived a quiet, simple life. He never hurried, never raised his voice, and always tried to help others when he could. But inside, Daniel felt lonely. His friends had families. His younger brother had moved away, and the house often felt too quiet. One spring morning, he went to visit his aunt who lived in a nearby neighborhood. She was a cheerful woman who loved to talk about people's lives and tell stories about everyone she knew. That day, she mentioned someone new. "You must meet Clara," she said with a smile. "She works at the library. Such a kind soul, though life hasn't been easy for her." Daniel didn't think much about it until he met Clara himself. She was standing near a bookshelf, arranging old novels with care. She wore a plain blue dress and her dark hair was tied neatly at the back. She smiled shyly when Daniel greeted her. Her voice was soft, and her eyes had a quiet sadness in them, the kind that comes from years of being misunderstood. Clara had a slight limp when she walked, a result of a childhood accident. Many people in town pitied her, but few ever truly talked to her. Daniel, however, found her presence calming. She spoke gently about books, about children who visited the library, and about her late father, who used to fix the old lamps at home. There was something real about her. No pretending, no drama, only honesty. Days turned into weeks, and Daniel found himself visiting the library more often. They began to talk about small things: the weather, the smell of rain, and favorite old songs. He didn't notice how much he started to look forward to those moments until one day, he saw Clara sitting alone, crying quietly behind the counter. Her father had passed away suddenly from a heart attack. The man who had been her only family was gone. Daniel felt an ache in his chest. He didn't know what to say, so he just sat beside her. She didn't speak either. But that silence, shared between them, said more than words. In the days that followed, Daniel helped her with errands, paperwork, and groceries. He even fixed the broken door at her house. People began to notice how much time he spent helping her, and whispers spread around. His aunt smiled knowingly one evening and said, "Maybe you should marry her, Daniel. She's all alone now." Daniel was shocked. Marriage. He hadn't thought about it that way. But that night, as he lay in bed, he couldn't get Clara out of his mind. He thought about her gentle eyes, her strength even in sadness. And yet he knew in his heart, what he felt wasn't love, it was compassion. Still, something inside him pushed him forward. Maybe it was guilt, maybe it was kindness, or maybe it was fear of seeing her suffer alone. The next week, Daniel visited Clara again. She was sitting on her porch, holding a cup of tea, looking tired but calm. He sat beside her and spoke slowly. "Clara, I've been thinking. You shouldn't have to face life alone. Maybe we should get married." Clara looked at him with surprise. She didn't speak for a long moment. Then she smiled. A small, careful smile. "Are you sure, Daniel?" she asked gently. "Marriage isn't something you do just to be kind." Daniel hesitated, but he nodded. "I want to take care of you," he said softly. "I mean it." And just like that, their fates were tied together. The wedding was quiet, attended only by close neighbors and family. The ceremony took place in a small chapel surrounded by flowers and candles. Clara wore a simple cream-colored dress. She looked beautiful, though there was no sparkle of excitement in her eyes. Daniel stood beside her, feeling the weight of his own decision. When the priest asked him to say his vows, his voice trembled slightly. He told himself he was doing the right thing. He was saving a woman from loneliness. As they exchanged rings, Clara's eyes met his. For a moment, Daniel saw something unexpected in her gaze: strength, calmness, and maybe a kind of understanding. It made him uneasy. He had expected her to be grateful, emotional, even dependent. But she looked at him as if she already knew more than he did. After the ceremony, they drove to Daniel's small countryside house. It was simple: wooden floors, plain furniture, and a garden full of wildflowers. Clara didn't say much during the drive. She looked out the window quietly, her expression unreadable. When they reached the house, she took a deep breath and smiled faintly. "It's peaceful here," she said. Over the next few days, Clara began to settle in. She cleaned, cooked, and rearranged small things around the house. Daniel noticed how naturally she took over responsibilities, how confident her movements were. She never asked him what to do. She simply made the place warmer, brighter. She hung curtains, baked bread, and placed little flowers on the kitchen table. Daniel watched her, confused. He had imagined a quiet, shy wife who would depend on him for everything. Instead, Clara seemed to stand on her own, not demanding, not weak. She was gentle, but her calmness carried quiet power. At night, they would eat together in silence. The sound of the clock ticking in the background was sometimes louder than their words. Daniel often caught her looking at him, not with sadness or love, but with understanding, as if she knew he was still lost inside his own mind. The days passed slowly, but tension grew in Daniel's heart. He began to feel trapped in his own kindness. He knew he had married her out of pity, and every time he looked at her, the guilt returned. He wondered if she knew. Sometimes he wanted to explain, to confess, but every time he looked at her calm face, he stopped. She seemed too peaceful to hurt with truth. And then came the night that changed everything. The rain began to fall outside, soft and steady, tapping against the windows. The house smelled of candles and wet earth. Daniel sat by the window, staring at the raindrops sliding down the glass. His thoughts were heavy. He told himself that this was the night every husband should cherish, yet his heart was not ready. He heard the quiet sound of footsteps behind him. When he turned, Clara stood near the door, her eyes calm and her face gentle. There was no nervousness, no fear, only peace. Daniel froze, unsure of what to say. He could feel his heart pounding. Clara looked at him and spoke softly. "Daniel, I know why you married me." Those words stopped him completely. He wanted to deny it, but he couldn't speak. She continued, her tone steady and kind. "You did it because you felt sorry for me, and I accepted because I was tired of being alone. But pity can't build a marriage." Her words were not angry, they were honest. Her calmness made his heart tremble more than shouting ever could. Daniel stood there speechless, realizing that the woman he thought was fragile had just shown him quiet strength he never imagined. Clara walked closer, still gentle, and said, "Let's not live a life of pretending, Daniel. Let's try to understand each other, truly. Let's begin again, as equals." In that moment, Daniel felt something shift inside him. The rain outside kept falling, soft and steady. But in his heart, a storm had begun. A storm of guilt, realization, and a strange new respect for the woman he had married out of pity. He looked at her, unsure of what to say, but one thing was clear. He would never see her the same way again. Clara had taken control not with anger or pride, but with quiet dignity. And that silent strength left Daniel frozen, unable to look away. Daniel stood there in silence, the sound of the rain still falling outside the window. His mind was spinning, his heart heavy with emotions he could not explain. Clara's words kept echoing in his head. Pity can't build a marriage. For the first time he truly saw her, not as someone fragile or in need of rescue, but as a woman who had faced her pain with quiet courage. He felt both ashamed and deeply moved. Clara didn't wait for him to answer. She walked past him, opened the window slightly to let the fresh air in, and then turned back with calm eyes. "Daniel," she said softly, "I don't need you to feel sorry for me. What I need is respect. If you can give me that, then maybe we can find something real between us." Daniel nodded slowly. He wanted to say something meaningful, but the words didn't come. He felt small in that moment, realizing how wrong he had been to think of her as helpless. He had been the one depending on the idea of being a savior, while she was standing strong, unbroken, and full of quiet dignity. That night, they talked for a long time. Not about love, not about promises, but about truth. Clara told him about her past, how she had grown up taking care of her father after her mother died, how she had learned to be strong because life gave her no other choice. "I've had people look at me with pity all my life," she said. "They see my limp, my quiet ways, and they think I'm weak. But weakness isn't silence, Daniel. Sometimes silence is strength." Daniel listened, humbled. Every word she spoke made him realize how little he truly knew about her. The woman he thought he was saving had already saved herself a long time ago. When the night ended, they didn't act like newlyweds. They simply sat together, two souls learning to understand each other for the first time. The next morning, the rain had stopped. The sun came out, painting the fields with light. Clara was already awake, cooking breakfast. The smell of warm bread and tea filled the house. Daniel stood by the door, watching her quietly. She was humming a soft tune, moving with calm grace. For the first time, he noticed how peaceful her presence felt. "Good morning," she said with a smile when she saw him. "There's tea on the table." He sat down slowly, feeling the weight in his chest ease a little. "Clara," he said softly, "I don't know what to say after last night." She looked at him, her eyes gentle. "Then don't say anything. Just be honest, with yourself and with me." Over the next few weeks, something began to change between them. Their home started to feel alive. Clara filled the empty corners with small touches: fresh flowers from the garden, clean curtains, and neatly arranged books. She began to visit the library again, helping children with reading. People noticed her glowing smile and how confident she seemed. Daniel also began to change. He started helping her more, not because he felt obligated, but because he wanted to. When she cooked, he helped set the table. When she planted flowers in the garden, he worked beside her. Slowly, he found comfort in her presence. The silence between them no longer felt heavy. It felt warm, like two people sharing peace. But deep inside, Daniel still carried guilt. One evening, as they sat outside watching the sunset, he finally spoke. "Clara," he said quietly, "I need to tell you something. When I married you, I thought I was doing a good thing. I thought I was being kind. But I realize now, it was selfish. I wanted to feel noble. I didn't see your strength." "I'm sorry." Clara turned to look at him. Her face was calm, her eyes soft. "Daniel," she said gently, "you don't need to keep apologizing for the past. What matters is what you do now. You've started to see me, really see me, and that means more than any sorry could." Her words touched him deeply. That night, as they sat in the quiet house, Daniel looked at her differently. The woman he once pitied now inspired him. She had taken control of her life and, in doing so, taught him what real partnership meant. As the months passed, their bond grew stronger. They began to laugh together more often. Clara had a quiet sense of humor, and Daniel found himself smiling more than he had in years. He started sharing his own stories, about his childhood, his dreams, his fears. It was the first time he had opened up to anyone that way. One afternoon, a friend visited and joked, "Daniel, you look like a different man these days." Daniel smiled and said, "Maybe I finally started learning what real strength looks like." That evening, after dinner, they sat in the garden again. The air was warm and the sky was filled with stars. Daniel looked at Clara and said softly, "I used to think love was about protecting someone. Now I see it's about understanding them." Clara smiled, her eyes glowing softly in the moonlight. "Understanding and respect," she said. "Without those, even love can fade." He nodded, thinking about all the days he had wasted feeling guilty, all the time he had spent trying to save her when she didn't need saving. He realized that Clara had been the stronger one all along, patient, wise, and quietly brave. Over time, the town began to notice the change in both of them. People who once whispered that Daniel had married Clara out of pity now saw something different, a real partnership. Clara continued her work at the library, teaching children and organizing reading clubs. Daniel started helping her with small community events. Together, they made the town's library a happier place. One evening, after a long day of helping at the library, Clara sat beside Daniel on the porch. She leaned back, watching the stars. "Do you remember," she said with a small laugh, "how quiet our house was after the wedding?" Daniel smiled. "I remember. I was scared of silence back then. I thought it meant something was wrong. And now?" she asked. "Now," he said softly, "silence feels peaceful. It feels like home." Clara smiled warmly. That's because we learned to listen to each other, not just talk. They sat there for a long while, saying nothing, yet feeling completely understood. As months turned into a year, Daniel realized something beautiful. He was falling in love with Clara, not because of pity or habit, but because of who she truly was. He loved the way she looked at the world, the way she handled every challenge with grace, and the way she carried both strength and kindness in the same heart. One morning, he found her in the garden watering flowers. The sunlight fell softly on her face, and she turned with a gentle smile. In that moment, he understood what love really meant. It wasn't about rescuing someone. It was about walking beside them. He walked over, took her hand, and said quietly, "I think I finally understand, Clara. You didn't need me to save you. I needed you to show me how to live." Clara looked at him for a moment, then smiled. "Then maybe," she said softly, "we both found what we were missing." From that day on, their home wasn't just a house. It was a place of laughter, peace, and understanding. They still had their quiet days, their moments of silence, but there was always warmth between them. Daniel often thought about how everything had started, a marriage out of pity, and how it had turned into something genuine and beautiful. Life had taught him a powerful truth. Love cannot grow from guilt, but it can grow from respect. Clara had shown him that real strength often hides behind gentle words, and real love begins the moment two people start seeing each other clearly. And so, in their small countryside home, under the same soft rain that once witnessed their confusion, Daniel and Clara finally found what every heart longs for. Not a perfect love story, but a real one built on patience, respect, and quiet courage.